I'm Clever Ghoul, but you can call me Nikki. Welcome back to the channel. I have to say, this week's project caught me by surprise. I've been looking for a cat tree, and I've been complaining about how ugly they are. And a good friend of mine sent me this option, a gothic style tower, complete with coffin bed, which made me laugh, but also made me realize I could make a coffin cat bed with some of the recycling I was about to take out. And maybe it's because I'm rereading Dracula, but I want this to look wooden if possible. So that's what we're doing this week. This is a really easy project, and while I'm making this into a cat bed, you could use the base of this project and scale it up or scale it down, whether you want a life-size coffin for your house for a Halloween party, or you wanted to make something smaller to decorate your home around this time of year. This will be a good jumping off point. So with all that being said, let's get into it. For materials, you'll need the following: cardboard, a cutting mat, X-Acto knife, ruler, duct tape, contact paper, and a blanket, or if you're going to make a cushion from scratch, fabric, and polyfill. I do have affiliate links in the description for these materials, and I do earn a small commission, so thank you. First, I drew up a plan so I knew how many pieces to cut before starting. I also decided the bottom piece would have tabs and the sides would have notches to help things fit together and make the assembly a little easier. I pulled out a large cardboard box that I was about to get rid of, but if I was doing this again, I may actually go and buy thicker, sturdier cardboard because I didn't realize how flimsy mine was before I started, and it would have just made it more reinforced, but I ended up making it work. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're considering structural integrity. From here, I cut off the sides of this box, then with a pencil, I marked where the middle was on the large piece of cardboard that remained. Then I began measuring out and marking the bottom piece of the coffin, marking the top, upper sides, bottom, and lower sides that make up the iconic shape. The measurements are based on the box that I had, so yours may be different, but in the end, these were the measurements. Then I went around and marked where I would make tabs, making each one 1 inch wide and then 1/16 inch thick to match the thickness of the cardboard. And then I cut everything out, making sure not to cut the tabs that I had just marked down. To make the walls of the coffin, I used the side pieces I cut off in the first step. I measured 5.5 inches into the piece, then measured again another 5.5 inches into the piece, and then made some cuts. In the end, I had 3 pieces that were 5.5 inches by 26 inches. Then I laid the pieces next to the base of the coffin, marked where they met up, and then cut the cardboard. I did this around the entire base of the coffin. Once all the walls were cut, I again would lay a piece down, mark where they lined up with the tabs, and then cut a notch to match. Again, this would have been more effective with sturdier cardboard, but it ended up working, so I'm okay with it. When all the notches were cut out, it was time to assemble. I would put 2 pieces of duct tape on the bottom of the coffin facing up, then place the wall down and press the tape up along the sides to attach it. I would put 2 more strips of tape on the inside to help secure the wall. I repeated this all around and then took my tape and went around the outside and inside, attaching and reinforcing the walls and base together. I also didn't like any of the raw edges at the top of the cardboard, so I covered those up with duct tape as well. At this point, I had my assistant test it out to see how she liked it.
Do you like it?
Finally, I pulled out the contact paper and cut off a length to match the width of a wall. But the paper was twice as wide as I needed it to be, so I would cut it in half. That way I would have 2 pieces. When doing this, make sure to pay attention to the wood grain and make sure that you like the direction it's going in and that it's all going the same way. Then I'd peel off the back and press the contact paper down onto the cardboard, trimming and wrapping any excess along the bottom or sides, like when you're wrapping a gift. I went all the way around and then repeated the process on the inside. However, I didn't do as meticulous of a job here, and I didn't bother to cover the base as it will be hidden. The last step is really up to you. You could take some fabric and trace the coffin shape and make your own cushion with some polyfill, or you could do what I did and use a blanket. I chose this for a couple of reasons. The first and most important is that my cat, she likes to burrow and make a little nest, so I want her to be comfortable, but also this will make it really easy to just take it out and wash it whenever it needs to be cleaned. But it's up to you. Anyway, it's time for the reveal. Here it is. I am so happy with how this turned out, and more importantly, Birdie loves it. I mean, here's a really horribly lit moment of her making biscuits in it, because of course she was doing this when I was nowhere near ready to film. This was such a fast and simple project. You could also use paint if you wanted to, but if you were doing that, I would recommend hot gluing the box together because acrylic paint is gonna have a hard time going over duct tape, so that's just something to keep in mind. I wanted to add more embellishments like little nail heads or even handles on the side, but since this is for my cat, her safety is most important, and I was really worried about adding anything that could potentially become a choking hazard, so I skipped it and left it really simple for now. But if you're doing this at home, and if you're not making a cat bed, you're using this for decor, you should go all out. You could paint, you could add embellishments, nail heads. There's just so much more you could add to it to make it even spookier and more fun. I've been really lucky. Birdie has been going into her coffin to take naps and make biscuits all on her own, which is great. I think part of this is because during the making process, she came over to check it out and I shooed her away, which I put in air quotes because I was intentionally trying to use reverse psychology on her, and it's worked in my favor. You know how it is. You give them a bed and they want nothing to do with it, but if you make it something they're not allowed to be on, they're gonna get into it. Anyway, would you make this for your pet? How would you go about doing it? I would love to hear, so let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!